Rig of the Week is brought to you by Long & McQuaid Musical Instruments, where the music begins.
I see you've been using some high watt stuff. Can you tell me a little bit about your rig?
Yeah, I'm not a typical guitar collector type dude. So I walked into Songbird in Toronto and saw that head, and it was basically the knobs that got me first, like big giant sci-fi, B-movie knobs, and I was like, cool, and got up to the gear and plugged in and played it, and it also happened to sound great, which was great. But I probably would have bought it just for the knobs anyway.
All show, that's what it's about, right?
All show, yeah. But yeah, that combo with the high watt and the Marshall cab is like it's loud. It's very loud. I have lots of head.
Talk to me about your Marshall.
My Marshall is like is nice. It's an 800 series, probably from the mid '70s. It's pretty souped up. There's a guy in Toronto named Tim that's done a bunch of stuff with the capacitors in it that really sort of souped it up and made it something a little bit unique, I think. And then I also run a Fender Deluxe at the same time, so I'm usually, most of the time I have both amps going at the same time. I sometimes bounce the Deluxe by itself if we're doing something that's got sort of heavy tremolo in it, and I'll use the Deluxe alone, so that's a nice setup though. The two together, I don't love either of them separately, but the two together just make this really nice sort of, what the Fender has, the Marshall doesn't have, so they add together, they make a really nice sound.
Is the Fender running into the Marshall cabinet?
No, they both run separately. So I run from my pedal board into each of them, so they're both running. So the Soundman gets a stereo mix from my guitars.
The Fender Telly that you're playing, is that your main guitar? Is that like your security blanket guitar?
Yeah, it's pretty much my only guitar, only electric, and it's like the Ian Blurton from Change of Heart Burtonia. We sort of bonded on the idea. He also plays a Telecaster and said, it's like a log with a neck on it. So you can throw it around. It's never out of tune. And
that's a great guitar. Speaking of guitars, you got an all-time favorite?
Well, my personal favorite that I have is my Gretsch for sure. I've got a 64 6120 that is an amazing guitar. It's like an amazing recording guitar, and even though people have said to me, Gretches are terrible live, this one stays in tune beautifully, and it's a fun guitar to play live. So it's getting a little delicate these days. So I'm always scared to bring it on the road, but I have been. And it's working out pretty good. So that's probably my favorite. My utility guitar is my Les Paul, though. That's what I use most, and that's you can pretty much do anything to that.
And is that Les Paul a newer model, or is it a vintage model as well?
It's sort of, again, mid-'70s, so yeah. I got that before the prices of Gibson skyrocketed. Like, man, I can't believe what you can spend on a Gibson right now, on a Les Paul especially. Like, I think mine's probably tripled in price since I bought it. So
you need to keep those guitars in a safe when you're not using them. Have you guys ever had any gear stolen on the road?
We've been actually really lucky. We had a van broken into in Newfoundland once when we were on tour, and the side window, they took the whole side window out, and the only thing they got out of there was pedals, which was ludicrous. We had so much stuff in there that, and there's, like, Steve has some vintage guitars and stuff like that. I can't believe that we got off scot-free, but, we replaced a couple of old pedals, but that was it. Frank Black got all his gear stolen in Toronto once, and was like banging on the window of Songbird Music, and they were closed, and the guy was looking up and he's like, there's some homeless guy outside trying to get in, and they're like, dude, that's Frank Black. And they came in and just bought all new gear.
Wow. So it does happen quite often.
Yeah, it happens on a shocking basis. I mean, you should really have insurance, like you get it through the Musicians Union and stuff like that pretty cheap, but it's pretty silly not to have it.
What do you particularly use when you're writing as a tool? Piano, guitar, what is your main thing you use to write songs with?
Normally, like in the past, it's mostly been acoustic guitar. In the earlier times, like Shakespeare in My Butt, that record was mostly acoustic guitar-based stuff. Then Hallucigenia and the more recent stuff, a lot more electric. And we've got a jam space where now I set up the piano, set up the guitars, I'll get on the drum kit, and just like move around whatever kind of sparks me. So yeah, it's pretty nice to have a space like that where you can just jump around and play.
The rigs you guys use live, is that the same stuff you're using in the studio, or do you switch around with a lot of different equipment?
For the most part, it's the same gear. We went into a place called Chemical Sound in Toronto, which is all sort of old analog gear, 2-inch tape and stuff like that. Like, it's becoming more and more rare that young bands anyway, or indie bands, record on 2-inch tape anymore, but we always do. And in there, they've also got a lot of old vintage, like, orange amps, and where they have, like, just Fender stuff. And, like, you know, it's great to have about 9 amps set up all in a row and all mic'd, and then you just kind of, you know, shuttle back and forth between them, and whatever starts to sound good. I mean, I've been in there before. The last time we were in there, we had that high watt cranked to 10, and I was wearing like construction earphones because the guys were sitting in the studio in the control room, and the glass was kind of going like this. It was so loud in there, and I was standing in there like shell shocked with these construction earphones on. So like cranking that high watt, there's nothing better for that kind of huge growl than just crank, you know, no pedals or anything, just crank the high watt up to 10 and let her go.
It's so strange that everybody's so caught up in worrying that they ain't what you want them to be.
Was there any other amps in the studio that you fell in love with when you were there?
Yeah, there was. What was it called? It was like there was a Crate, which I don't think is a terribly respected amp, but it's like it sounded awesome.
I ended up mostly using a Fender Basement Head through a Marshall cabinet, and that really was a lot of the sound that I played through. Used the Deluxe a little bit. Didn't use the Marshall at all on this record. I've used it a lot in the past, but this record we didn't use it at all. What else do we have going there? We have some high watt stuff going in there. We have one Vox that we used a little bit. But that, mostly for me, it was the Fender Basement, and that was like just like Ian, who produced our record, liked to sort of like turn every knob up to 10 and just crank the sound, and got a really nice, clean, but something that would break up when you sort of pushed it hard enough. So that would seem to be the way we went on this record.
You can't beat a vintage tube amp no matter what.
I'll always be all tubes.
There's no other way.
Now all this digital stuff, as much people saying, you know, digital recording is you can't tell the difference anymore. You can tell the difference.
I think there's a major difference.
Yeah. We did our album all analog, and it cost us a lot more. Like, people have been saying, wow, you spent that much on your record. And, you know, by today's standards, it was high. By records we did in, like, 94, it was, like, you know, not even half. But
Thanks a lot, I'm Frank Roy. Sign off for Rig of the Week. See you next time.
You can test me all you want. You can slap me up and down. You can take me to the cleaners with that bad attitude. But you won't break my stride. You filled my world with lies. My hopes went up and down. You left me standing